Now this brings us into a difficult period of Byzantine art. We have something between 726 and 843 known as Iconoclasm. Now I need to back up for a second, sort of describe some of the situation here. First of all, an icon is actually a Greek term. It simply means image. It's where we get the same idea today when it comes to icons on a computer screen. And the idea was that you should venerate. You should pray through the icon, not to it. So let's say we have an image of the Virgin Mary. The idea was not that I pray to the image of the Virgin Mary, because that is idolatry. That is definitely against the rules. What it's supposed to do is it's supposed to help me pray to the Virgin Mary. So it's what's known as an intercessory object, intercessory. And basically, it's going to help me focus on the Virgin Mary so that I can pray to the Virgin Mary, but at no point am I actually praying to the image. That's the idea. However, many look to icons for cures and protection as superstitious objects, as objects that cause miracles. This makes many people very uncomfortable because it smells a lot like idolatry. And it's a very fine line, especially when we get into Islam, between idolatry and using an object to help you pray to a specific person. So this leads to something called iconoclasm. What we're going to have is people who will start whitewashing, destroying, and breaking images. And iconoclasm is the destruction of the images, this idea that we need to take down murals and sculptures and destroy them. An iconoclast is someone who destroys images. And this is something that's going on for a long period of time. So we're going to have people who are going to get labels here. And the iconoclasts will do things like this, where they see the sculpture and they destroy the faces, for example, off of it, because now it's no longer the Virgin Mary, it's anyone. And then on the other side, we have iconophiles, people who loved icons, who loved images. And the iconoclasts, as they're going through and destroying things, we're going to have a couple of attempts to quell this argument. We have the Second Council of Nicaea in 787, which tries to quell the argument. But the argument again re-erupts about 30 years later in 814. Another 30 years later in 843, the Empress Theodora, a different Theodora, because Theodora was not in fact an immortal vampire or something that simply continues. Theodora is just a common name for an empress in the Byzantine Empire. Anyway, the Empress Theodora does away with the policy and says once and for all, icons are perfectly fine. But for our purposes, this becomes important because we're going to see more in the second half of the Byzantine, which we're entering into now, than we did early on, because many of those early pieces were in fact damaged and destroyed due to iconoclasm.